Hi, I'm Laura and I have FND. I was diagnosed in March 2018, but I first started having symptoms just 6 weeks before that, at the end of January of 2018. So I was quite lucky that I got diagnosed quite quickly due to people cancelling other appointments and things. So that was quite a fortunate thing. I went to bed one night with a massive migraine. In the middle of the night, woke up having severe tremors and really just not knowing what on earth was going on. So we went straight to the hospital, and where they suspected I was having a stroke, but they did a CT scan that was clear. I was admitted and had to wait for an MRI scan, which took a few weeks, but I didn't stay in hospital that long. I came home, and I'd go a few days of feeling really tired, but like just getting on with things, and then it'd happen all over again. That was at the start. It progressed a little bit further since then. My main symptoms are involuntary movements, twitching of my hands, and then progressing to big circular waving movements. Sometimes I'm like slapping my own legs or like cushions and things around me, and I can't control it. This is often followed by a period of paralysis. I also get like spasms in my core and can't like control any of that, or like shaking uncontrollably. I get weakness, especially down my right hand side, and then I also get nerve pain, which is the weirdest thing to try and describe ever, because it's not an ache and it's not a stabbing pain, it's just like my nerves hurt. I get quite a lot of migraines and a lot of fatigue. I've had drop attacks in the past. Sometimes I get stuck speaking, so like trying to get words out, I can't get the right words out, I can't speak, or I stammer a lot. A lot of various different things at different times with those. We end up having to guess what I'm trying to say a lot, like verbal charades. For example, do you know what an oven is that keeps things cold? That will be a fridge. It's that sort of thing where I can't find the right word. I've had a few different treatments. So I was diagnosed and basically given the website, as I'm sure many of you will have been, neurosymptoms.org, and basically told you'll be put on a waiting list for neuropsychology. Off you pop. That waiting list was 2 years long where I live. We sought a second opinion in Leeds, and they agreed with the diagnosis, but because of where I lived, they couldn't put me on to their system, which was only a 3-month waiting list. So I just had to get on with life, really. I was given some hydrotherapy sessions. I think I had 9 of those, which really helped build up some of the strength again. And we've since got a hydrotherapy pool at home so that I can keep doing my exercises there, but also using the jets and things when my pain is bad to help with recovery. I had neurophysio as well, which helped in giving me some strengthening exercises, but prior to having FND, I was a dancer, so I knew a lot of those sort of things anyway, so I just had the added value of somebody telling me to do them, and giving me a few different variations for what I could do now as opposed to what I used to be able to do. The biggest thing with the neurophysio was that she knew FND and she understood it, and I didn't have to explain it, and that I think in itself was so worthwhile, of having somebody just understand. And then the big one really was the neuropsychology, deciding that we weren't going to wait 2 years for something. We sought private treatment on that one, and I saw a lady in Leeds for started in January 2019 and finished in November 2019. So yeah, I think I had 25 sessions over that time. So, and that was really, really helpful. We did a lot of digging into what triggers were and how they affect everything, how neural pathways are built from various different events in my life. Excuse me. We did some EMDR within that as well, which is to do with eye movement and how it processes trauma, which was really, really helpful and helped to break down some of the big traumas that I'd had in my life, and sort of file them into my brain rather than them being there and taking over everything. So that was so valuable and way, way, way better than what I would have got if I'd have waited, because I did stay on the waiting list for the NHS one, and when it came through I was only allocated 6 sessions, and they weren't even with a neuropsychologist, they were with a clinical psychologist, which isn't the same thing. And having been through the private experience, the stuff that she did with me there were not great, and in the end I only had 4 sessions with her, because then they closed the service, and I was told that was because the waiting list was too long. There just was then no other option for treatment for where I live, so I'm glad I took the initiative and went private, the year before that. Then what part of my life has FND affected the most? So as I said, I used to be a dancer and a dance teacher. I had my own dance school, and I was also training to become a church minister, and I was working for a church, and all that has gone. I can't rely upon myself to be well enough to teach, and so I don't teach anymore. And I can't rely on myself to be strong enough to teach. So I had sessions where I was teaching and then one side of my body would just stop working. So I was trying to carry on one-sided, which was a little bit crazy. And it was really, really just wearing me out. I was so tired, I couldn't do anything else. So when COVID hit, everything had to stop anyway. And I'd kind of been battling on for a while with just 1 class a week, but that had to stop, and I just couldn't get myself back to it. So that has stopped too. So that was really sad, because that was a huge part of who I was. I'd danced since I was 3 years old, and it was a massive chunk of yourself to lose, so that was really difficult. However, at Christmas, this last Christmas, I was just like so down. I decided that I was going to start dancing again, and so I now go for just 1 session a week. I go for a private session, so that if I can walk, if I can do anything, then great, and if I can't, then I can't. We can just sit and chat about it, or talk about technique, or any of those sort of things. But I've gone back to, because it's ballroom and Latin that I specialised in, and I've gone back to doing a little bit of that. And that is 1 hour a week of just pure joy of me being who I am, but also being who I am in this version of me, which is a slightly different version. It's like Laura 2.0. It affects so much of my life. So I couldn't carry on with the work I was doing at church. It was really making me very, very difficult. I got to the point where all I was doing was putting any well hours that I had into working and having none left for my family or for myself. And that just became unsustainable. I was having a lot of drop attacks and then sleeping pretty much a lot of the time. So again, I had to stop that 2 years ago. And I'm in a very fortunate position where I don't have to work. So, I am very, very blessed in that respect. So I can now focus my energy on other things. I volunteer for a baby loss charity, and I volunteer with certain things with church, and I get to look after my son, which is just a real blessing. Because of course FND affects my whole family. It affects my husband, it affects my son. He regularly says, I don't like it when mummy's poorly. I'm like, I'm sorry, neither do I. But he is really caring because of it and really helps me when I'm stuck, and we've just had to adapt to it. One positive thing, now this might be controversial, But I can think of lots of positive things that I've learned from having FND. One is compassion and understanding of disability and how others can be affected. I think I was probably quite ignorant before of people in wheelchairs and what they can and can't do. But I have so much more compassion and understanding for that, and I'm willing to spread the word on that just because you're in a wheelchair doesn't mean you can't do anything. It's taught me perseverance, like, gotta keep going. Keep going. It's going to be another day. There's going to be another time. There's going to be another chance. You just keep going. It might not be what we think it should be or what we wanted it to look like, but it will be good and it will keep going. Appreciation for everything around me. As I said, I was working 2 or 3 jobs at the time when I got FND, as well as being a mother. And I just rushed around doing everything all the time. I had no, appreciation for it. That's a real positive for me. If I was to give some advice to someone who's just been diagnosed, I would say allow yourself time and grace to grieve your old self. Yes, things will be different, and yes, things won't be necessarily what you wanted or what you planned, but they're still there. You are still here. You're still fighting. You're still living. So for me, it's become living with FND, not just getting by with FND. So work out what brings you joy now. And it might not be the same thing that was before, and it might be. But it might be a different version of what it was before or whatever. Work out what it is that brings you joy and do it. And remember, no one else knows how you feel. So, I mean it in a way that some people can be quite judgy. But they're not you. They don't know what you're going through. So just disregard that. But also, no one else knows how you feel in your body, like what's hurting. I used to think, why can't people tell that I'm hurting? But of course they can't, because a lot of it's internal, and they don't know that I have a headache unless I tell them. They don't know that I feel like my nerves are going to burn through my skin unless I tell them, because they can't see it and they can't feel it. So communication is really, really important. Keep a journal of your symptoms if that helps, or write it down or record it somehow. The FND app is helpful for recording things. And yet, seek advice and seek support from the right places. Be wary of Facebook groups. Some of them can be really scary places. They did not give me the help that I needed. But using some of the Instagram accounts and following certain people on Instagram has been super, super helpful. And I've found a little bit of a community within that of people that are going through really similar things to me and understand it, but also trying to find the positive in that. And that's a really, really important thing for me. I also keep a gratitude diary. So every single day I write down, before I go to sleep, 3 things. I mean, sometimes it's a little bit after that if I'm not able to write it, but I write down 3 things every day that I am grateful for. And that really, really helps me to focus on the good things. So I hope that's been helpful and a bit of an insight of how I deal with FND. And I know it's different for so many different people, but it's great. And if you